thinking Lion King? No, that was.
Yeah, I bet you don't know who made it.
Oh, gosh, Jim, hang on. Who sings it?
Was it Four Seasons?
Nope.
No, not Four
It wasn't,
Seasons.
no, it was,
Oh, come on, Bart, this is embarrassing.
Don't know?
I did know it, I can't think of it though.
The Tobin.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
okay,
right.
yep.
Yes, sir. Oh, I gotta get better at that.
All right, good evening, everyone. This should be a fairly quick meeting. We're gonna kick this off tonight at 6:01. I'm slightly behind. I'm here, Thomas is here, Meg's here, Barb's here. Chuck is not here tonight. Ricky is here, Jim's here. I don't see anything for public comment. I do wanna let you know that the Trout Unlimited folks were invited
Okay.
this evening to come.
Oh, they didn't say they were coming.
So they may be here.
It was my understanding that they were coming to
Okay.
have a conversation, so, so we'll kind of just push that off to the side for now, we'll go through the draft resolutions,
Okay.
so on and so forth, but I'll throw it over to Tom. I know that, Tom, you had a draft resolution,
Yeah, I'd like to be on
do you wanna talk about that a little bit?
there. Well, it's a draft resolution in support of the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which is House Resolution 763. I think it's very vital that we take a stand on what needs to be done in terms of our climate, and that we need to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the air. We need to be able to change the destabilizing pattern if possible of the weather, et cetera. And I feel that it is, the way I look at it is, I'm representing people of this area, and I have an obligation, as far as I'm concerned, to protect them as much as possible. My feeling is that this needs to be addressed. It has to be addressed if we're going to prevent or minimize the types of storms we're going to have in the future, the types of climate, the types of fires, the types of things that you've been seeing going on through the states, even to like Irene that we had here. I suspect there'll be more, at least in the various conventions and things that I've gone to on climate change. This has been a theme that we can expect this. I'm not saying that this happens tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen within the next decade, but it's going to happen unless we make some changes, and the changes have to be made now. And this is a resolution urging our elected representatives on the federal level to pass an act like this, which will allow for taxation at the source of any of the carbon producing things, and it would provide that any money that is collected in that regard go back to the people, all the people in the United States, at an even rate. Therefore, an area like ours, where we have poorer people, would benefit because more of the money would come back proportionately for what they spend on the gas and that kind of thing. And if you just look at those that do have money and are using planes and are using building more homes and everything else, everything uses energy and creates more carbon dioxide and other gases, and we need to minimize that. But in minimizing it, people would not be, they would have to pay more for when they fill up their car or whatever, but they would be getting a rebate. And under this particular draft, and I'm just saying it's a draft, the particular HR 763, I'm sure it can be changed by the Congress at any point, but if they did pass it, it would allow money, would allow the money to come back to everybody after it was, when it was done. There would be a commission set up to do this. The actual tax would be a certain amount at the wellhead, whether drilling or whatever it is, and it would be increased each year. The incentive therefore is to try to minimize that and go towards more renewables. The main companies that have been responsible in the past, like Exxon, have the money to go into another form, into renewables and stuff, and they could change their business model. But in order to do that, they have to have incentives, and this is an incentive. And it will not raise the taxes of over 80% of the people. It won't raise the taxes, it won't raise the amount that they're paying for things, because they get the money back. The money is to come back on a monthly basis for those that have difficulty getting from paycheck to paycheck. They didn't want to send it back, as a tax refund or something, or at the end of the year. So it would come back on a regular basis, so that they would be able to pay for the things that they need. And yes, it would increase it at the moment, but they would get more back than they actually would have spent.
Any
And this
questions?
is just urging our congresspeople to consider passing this, or adding on. We have, I can't remember exactly, I think there's 69 House members that have signed on to this so far. But we're urging all parties to do it. We're not, we want it to be bipartisan, and that's why we're urging our representatives to do it.
Any questions? Meg, I wanted to, as promised, talk about the potential increase for wastewater tonight. Can you give just kind of where in Chuck's philosophy with Scott was when you had a chance to talk with him on the wastewater committee?
It was just getting that up to a rate that seemed reasonable. We talked about how some of our rates were artificially low in the past, and our services are wonderful. We don't place any value on water in our society. Our rates are incredibly low. I know we're talking about the other end of it,
Yeah.
but getting sewer up to the rate that's equivalent with our water, so that going forward, we can just make the increases together every year.
One of the things that I would advocate for is that we look at kind of and I think we should do this in general from a philosophy of modeling, is predictable modeling, from the sense of like, that next year will likely be this percentage or this percentage, so that people can kind of forecast their expenses and impact. Did you folks talk about either a percentage or a number in particular that?
It was bringing it up to the 15%, which is where we are with
Okay.
water. And I believe it's only $5. It might be even less.
Yeah, it was approximate with that. Scott was out of pocket with some meetings today, so I'll get more numbers. What I was thinking of potentially doing for consideration is get that scale to you folks, and then that way we can have a template resolution, and then we can plug in what we feel is the appropriate as a group. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
And
So-
maybe the other board members want to have a conversation
Yeah.
with Scott as
Yeah,
well.
I think that's a good point, Matt. So, just so I understand, test my understanding, it's really building in like incremental increases over time, or you're trying to get it up to, it's been
It's,
substantially low.
right.
Okay. So the 15% would, you're not plugging the number necessarily right now, but that's what's being looked at to,
To get it to equivalent to where our water rate
or
is
water
going up
rates, okay.
to 15.
Would this rate be substantial enough to replace the infrastructure as it, declines? I mean, would be that solvency thing?
We talked about it. I wrote down some numbers. I don't have them here.
Okay.
I don't think our rates cover our infrastructure.
yeah, no,
at all.
it would,
Yeah.
it would not cover 100% of the base of our infrastructure largely. I mean, a lot of the infrastructure that gets developed within municipalities is, grant funded,
No, I'm just saying whatever we need, whatever.
well, and still, that level has never been there within almost any community that I've seen. But there's that level of acknowledging a certain value to the system, but also having the funds available to dispatch emergency needs and repairs, address the infrastructure that we currently have, and this is well before even looking at any of the expansion issues. And I know that there's a lot of interest in various pockets of our community that say, we would like to have, this type of infrastructure development in canvassing and such. Yeah, I mean, and I am only going to speak for myself, I would agree with you, Megan, from the standpoint of, I think we need to get to the equivalency. My only concern would be to do it in one step. I would just like to look at the number. I'm not I don't have the wastewater in the town, so, in one way, that's why I just wanna explore a little bit more, but I think the concept behind it is we need to be looking at the infrastructure, and you're absolutely correct about getting it to where it needs to be. Our water rates are some of the lowest in the country,
Yeah.
putting it as a comparison.
What Jim was saying is, and what we want to have it sustainable, and as it has to be replaced over a period of time, say 30 years, whatever it is, we need to be setting aside a percentage of that, 1/30th or something, towards the replacement of it. But in that sense, we've got to keep that money separate and keep building it up. I'm not sure what we're allowed to do in the funds under the state laws.
And I know Chuck's not here tonight, so I just wanted to canvass a little bit of this conversation, because we did bring it up during the budget meeting, as promised, so that we could keep this conversation going, so that we can make a determination soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Meg, for giving me some background information.
It just makes sense to me.
It does. You're
Well, I
absolutely right.
mean,
Our-
probably overdue.
Anybody's water and sewer bill probably is the smallest bill they pay
Right.
every, it's not even monthly, it's quarterly,
It's quarterly.
Yeah.
and it's pennies.
And none of that doesn't help anybody to have it artificially low.
No.
Somebody's gonna pay sometime, someplace, somewhere.
Yeah.
So
That's not
let's
anybody.
just get it
Let's
there,
just get it.
especially when we're in the midst of this capital plan.
Yeah.
It's, to me, it's very important, and we've been talking about it for the last 15 years,
Mhm.
and it's time that we actually did it, and I'm glad we're headed that way.
So more to come on that. Like I said, quick meeting this evening. Minutes, 1-year utilities warranty refund for Heritage Heights subdivision phase 1, series of budget amendments, and a couple things to be reminded of. Next week is the 5th Thursday in the month, so we don't have a meeting. I think it's also Halloween,
Halloween,
actually.
yeah.
So trick or treat. And then we have our budget hearings and special district hearings on the 7th, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So I will make sure to reach out to Limited tomorrow or Monday.
Are we gonna discuss the,
I was not in a position where I was planning on
Yeah.
kind of introducing and leading it.
Right.
we'll let
They've
them-
asked for us to consider it, and that's why I extended the invitation to say, if you wanna come and, kind of advocate, for it. So
For what?
they want to consider getting the,
our support for,
getting rid of the Imperial Dam. But I couldn't speak effectively on it because they're advocating for it, so.
Have you talked to Trevor about it at all?
Nope, I literally have not done any of that groundswell stuff because they began a conversation with the city. The city passed a resolution in support of it, and now I think they're kind of methodically going through and getting some other communities there on the Saranac River to, considering lending similar support.
Right.
And speaking with Don Lee about it, very briefly, he talks about, kind of the history of salmon and, what the impact is and how those dams don't have the same, impact of efficiency of hydroelectricity and stuff as they once were, and how there's some safety concerns now, but that's as far as comfortable I would go in
Yeah,
speaking
I
about the
agree,
topic.
but I appreciate you checking into it and reaching out to Troutman Limited, because I know
Well,
I'd
they,
asked-
well,
I'd
they
asked you
reached,
about it.
well,
Oh,
they
reached
reached,
out to you? Okay.
this, right from the get-go,
Uh-huh,
this resolution, Don Lee engaged and said, would you consider?
okay.
So this is a local group engaging us in this I'd like to lean on them for continued consideration before we,
Mhm.
you know, endorse or turn down, so I'll reach back out to them.
Okay.
So, all right,
Is there any things we have to do for executive session?
not that I'm aware of. All right,
Mhm.
all said and done. 6:16, have a great night.